I'm Chancellor Holden Thorp. Joining me today is New York Times columnist and political analyst David Brooks. You've seen him with Mark Shields on the PBS NewsHour and the show's most popular segment, and you've heard his commentary on national affairs on National Public Radio. In addition to his bi-weekly column and other gigs, Mr. Brooks writes about American culture. His latest book is The Social Animal, The Hidden Sources of Love, Character, and Achievement, which comes out in March. After graduating from the University of Chicago with a degree in history, he started his journalism career as a police reporter. Welcome, David.
Good to be here.
Great to have you here. Your column today compares nations and universities, and I want to thank you for writing it. It's right on point with a lot of things that we've been saying about universities and why they're important. And I grew up in the theater, so the fact that you said that everybody knows that a university president is a powerful stagehand really resonated with me.
I'm glad that didn't rub you the wrong way.
No, definitely didn't rub me the wrong way. And you say that one of the things that, or the thing that universities do, the two things are establish a climate and aggregate talent. So how did you come to write this column right now about America and America's great universities?
Yeah, well, first it started looking at the American economy, where we think of the economy sort of as a war, and some people think there's America Inc., and there's China Inc., and Germany Inc., and we're all competing against each other, but of course that's not the way it is. We're trying to attract talent from each other, and we're trying to be the most dynamic, creative, idea-generating place on Earth. And so who's been doing that for a century? And that's American universities. And so it struck me that the relationship is sort of the same. We're less like a sports team and an army as an economy, and more like a university, because it's more about the exchange of ideas and getting people to do things here. And one of the key points is even though we're in a global information age, actually gathering people face to face on one spot is what boosts their creativity, multiplies their talents. And so if you can get a conference here or a great department here, the members of the department will make each other better. And so that's what makes it magical. That's why people apply here. And so it's just like being a university president, being the president of the United States. It's how do I attract the right people, and how do we get that confluence of conversations?
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. That's fantastic. So you wrote another column about the sad events in Tucson, and especially about the event that was held at the University of Arizona, where the president made his speech and rose above a lot of the political rhetoric in the way that you pointed out. We were, Robert Shelton, who's the president in Arizona, was the provost here.
Right.
So we were all touched by just the University of Arizona and the role that it played in that event, with the students screaming and the sort of everybody gathering at the university, and Gabrielle Giffords was at the University Medical Center. What do you think American public universities are able to bring the community together in that way? What does that say to you?
It's interesting out there because Arizona is essentially a new state, and so many people have moved there new and are moving there every year new, and so there's relatively little in social institutions. And so when you go to Phoenix or to Tucson, the things you notice are that the institution they all talk about is University of Arizona and Arizona State University. And these institutions are actually creating downtowns, and they're sort of the main cultural institutions in the place because they don't have much else. And you know, we're here sitting here in the Research Triangle, and that the universities have created this place too. And universities are tremendous wealth-generating places.
There'll be a lot of students watching this interview. You work at a newspaper that tried to charge for your column online, and then they had to stop doing it, and they're going to try to do that again. And you're on public television and public radio. What do you think about the future of news and the media and where all of that is going?
Yeah, well, the first thing I always say for students who are thinking of going to journalism is that it's useful to learn how to write, no matter what career you go into. If you learn how to structure a piece of writing, that will be useful no matter what you do. And I think you can talk to employers in any field, and they have a very small minority of their employees who can write a paragraph. And so that's useful. The second thing to be said is, while we're having trouble finding the payment mechanism to generate revenue, there's no shortage of readers. We have more readers than ever before. And to be in journalism, I've been in it for 30 years roughly now, and there are more readers, there's more feedback, there's more going on than ever before. And when I go out and cover a candidate, say on a political campaign, there are more reporters out there than everybody before, so somebody's paying all these people. And so while it has been a tough time for journalism, somebody will figure out a revenue. When you've got an audience and you've got a product, somebody will figure out how to make the audience pay for that product. And we may be on the verge of discovering that. If we don't, somebody else will. And so, you know, there's going to be media out there, and there will be foundations supporting it. So it won't look like what I do, but it'll be out there somewhere.
Agreed. So your new book is The Social Animal. It's about neuroscience and psychology, and about how soft skills will define the success of the next generation.
Right.
You know, we do a lot of things in universities that don't happen as much in high school: class discussion, group projects, and then, of course, things that happen outside the classroom. What advice do you have for students to develop the kind of skills that you talk about in your book while they're in college?
Well, pay a lot of attention to your roommates. They're sort of like on a college campus, there are two economies. There's the classroom economy, which is an important economy, and then there's the dorm room economy, where you learn how to socialize, you learn how to watch YouTube videos, you do all the pranks that you do in college. And that second economy is also tremendously important, and one could say even more important, because it's about the formation of character. I think one of the things the universities have lost, frankly, is that they used to have character building models in the 1920s, say. And they say, we're here not only to train scholars, we're here to train men and women. And we know how we're going to do that. We have a formula for that. And so at Princeton, for example, in the 1920s, their theory was we have very rich people who come to Princeton in the 1920s. We're going to toughen them up and make them men. In those days it was men. And so they did that by the dorms were horrible, cold showers. They used to have these snowball fights between the freshman class and the sophomore class. And they didn't throw snowballs at each other, they threw rocks. And so there's pictures that are now in the library of the faces of the freshmen and sophomores swollen shut, broken noses. And the theory was we're going to toughen them up. And so we wouldn't want to toughen them up. We wouldn't want to build that character model anymore. But I do think we should have a character model. And one of the ways people build characters by learning their social relationships and figuring out how to give, how to listen, how to care for others in times of crisis. And the university nurtures that atmosphere, but a lot of it is what the students do to each other. So my book is a bit about what happens in the classroom with the brain, but it's mostly about what happens in the dorm room and how those social interactions are so tremendously important in creating the life you're going to lead the rest of your life.
And I think that's one thing that supports that is the fact that, you know, years ago people thought maybe on public television people would go to school, and then we had sort of online education, but the residential college education, even though people talk a lot about how we finance it and all of that, it doesn't really seem to be in danger, because of everything that you just said.
Yeah, and one of the things that I had mentioned in my talk here at UNC was that when they take groups of people and give them a problem, and one group meets face-to-face for 10 minutes, they crush the groups that meet electronically for 30 minutes, because face-to-face communication is just much, much more powerful. 90% of our communications is not by words, it's by gestures and looks. And so the book is really about all that stuff that's going on. There was a famous case where a psychology professor, was one of these guys who wandered up and down the lectern, the front of the hall classroom as he lectured. And the class beforehand decided, when he gets over here, we'll look at him. When he gets over here, we'll look down at our notebook. Well, within 5 minutes, he was way out the door over here. He didn't know what was going on consciously, but he knew he felt better over here because they were looking at him. And so those are the sort of hidden signals we send each other.
Yeah. Well, I enjoyed reading the excerpt in the New Yorker, and I look forward to your book. I know it'll be a huge success.
I hope so.
So tonight's the State of the Union. You've said that Obama's been seizing the momentum the last little bit here. What does he have to do tonight? Yeah,
well, I think, a couple things. The country still doesn't quite know whether he's a big liberal or a big pragmatist or what exactly he is. And this is the one time in the second half of his term to really define who he is. The second thing is that the country's anxious about the decline. 65% of Americans think the nation is in decline and China's rising. And that's a sentiment shared by a lot of people around the world. And I think he more or less has to give a formula to say, we're not in decline. Here's how we're going to be a great nation throughout the 21st century. And so I'm hoping he'll think big and ambitious and really talk about fundamental tax reform, fundamental entitlement reform, all that sort of stuff. I'm a little dubious, a lot of people will probably watch this after the State of the Union, but I'm a little dubious that that he will get as big as I'd like him to be. There's natural tendencies within any bureaucracy to say, keep it small, let's do a few little things here, and we'll see how he handles that.
We will. And David, thanks so much for being on our campus today. It's great to talk to you, and hope you come back to Chapel Hill often.
I hope so. Thank you.